Good evening and thank you for joining us for another episode of Business PNG. Recently, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill and a delegation of cabinet ministers, including Petroleum and Energy Minister William Duma, Mining Minister Byron Chen, Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry Richard Maru, traveled to India for the Forum for the India-Pacific Cooperation Summit. The FIPIC summit was the second of its kind and was attended by heads of 14 Pacific Island countries from the 19th to the 21st of August this year.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill was present for the historic occasion of the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation, or FIPIC Summit 2015 in the Republic of India. He was there among other prime ministers and heads of state of 14 other Pacific Island countries, including Fiji Prime Minister Vorange Bainimarama and Vanuatu Prime Minister Sato Kilman, among others. The FIPIC Summit is an initiative of the Government of India and is the second of its kind. The first one was held in Fiji in November 2014. In an exclusive interview with MTV, Prime Minister O'Neill said the summit was to establish what sort of partnerships can be forged between India and the Pacific Island countries, particularly in the areas of trade and investment and exchange of technology.
India is a very exciting country because it is the fourth largest economy in the world. It's got a big population of 1.25 billion people and of course very world-class established businesses. So we were able to engage with them. Many businesses who have never heard of Papua New Guinea. They're willing to come and, of course, invest in Papua New Guinea. We've got several companies already working in PNG, large companies out of India. ESA Construction is one of them. And, of course, Angelique, which is a company doing all the transmission lines from Biala to Kimbe. So there's a huge interest, and of course many of them are now wanting to come to PNG. We've encouraged the investors to have a trade delegation to come to PNG, and next year I am thinking of taking a huge Papua New Guinean delegation. The judicial system is similar to ours. They all speak English, so communication with them is easier. And of course, they've got some technologies that is really conducive to our own environment. Their rural communities are similar to Papua New Guinea, very remote, in some cases not accessible easy. And they have developed some technologies which is delivering government services and of course other basic services and like banking and health and education through some unique technologies that they have developed. This is something that we can learn of. So I was very impressed with our trip to India.
It's a very dynamic and beautiful time when you have two dynamic prime ministers, like both of them are spontaneous, hardworking, and they really want to see some progress happens. And I feel this is a great time, like at least PNG made a decision to come now. And I'm also so grateful, and I must say thank you to our High Commission here for arranging that one-on-one meeting for our PM to meet with his counterpart Indian PM. That's a great opportunity for us to raise the development opportunities. Don't forget that PNG is, in terms of landmass, in terms of its population, in terms of its economics, and we are the largest in Pacific. And yet we have very little relationships, and it is sad to see that we don't even have some bilateral agreements signed. So I think that should be the next step, that we have to start from the basic. Let's sign a basic cooperation agreement.
In the opening remarks of the FIPIC summit, India's Prime Minister Modi said this is the first regional summit he has hosted in his country, and he described it as special. He said it was special also because India and the Pacific Island countries are setting an example of partnership for this century based on shared aspirations and challenges. Mr. Modi acknowledged that climate change is a threat to the Pacific Islands adding that it is also taking a toll on millions of Indians who live on India's shoreline. Mr. Modi said FIPIC should become a springboard for India and the Pacific for a stronger global partnership where they can also enrich each other through bilateral and regional cooperation. During the last summit, India announced a number of new initiatives with the Pacific Island countries, such as visa on arrival in India, increasing aid, technology training, special training of diplomats of Pacific Island countries, establishment of Pacific Island Trade Office in India, providing support in healthcare and medicine, and the like. Mr. O'Neill then offered Papua New Guinea's support to India for proposed reform of the United Nations Security Council that would include India as a permanent member. There was also a bilateral meeting between the Prime Ministers of India and PNG, which is expected to result in positive developments in important sectors of the economy.
I have been to meet with a number of very important investors from India who are interested in investing in Papua New Guinea. I've also had a very exciting meeting with the Exim Bank of India, and also I guess the highlight was the meeting between the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea and the Prime Minister of India, and the opportunities that we are now starting to explore in terms of building a strong relationship with India and deepening that relationship, especially in the area of trade and investment.
Governor for West New Britain's Sindran Muthuvel said the bilateral meeting covered many aspects of potential opportunity between both countries.
And we were all quite impressed with our Prime Minister and also the Honourable Prime Minister of India. They both covered varieties of subjects, and our PM have put it in a sequential manner, touched about our disaster management. We touched about our supporting our naval base, especially having some training with the Indian Defence, touched about renewable energy, and also talking about setting up the coir industry, similar kind of setup where India has. And they have covered a wide range of subjects, and again our PM also have extended that invitation for various infrastructure program. And also I'm happy that PM did mention about the possibilities of the PPP arrangement with Indian companies, and also the government support through Indian Exim Bank for various important the national priority infrastructures. I would classify this meeting as one of the most powerful and the most successful meeting, and this is what we have been waiting for the last 3 days.
PNG and India also agreed to increase the number of defense personnel, and that India will help build PNG's capacity within the public service machinery, particularly in naval bases and naval forces. The Prime Minister said there will also be an increase in the number of Papua New Guineans studying in India. India's Prime Minister Modi said they are willing to increase the number of spaces that are available for Papua New Guinean students in India, which will be formalized very soon. India has also shown keen interest in investing into Papua New Guinea's petroleum and energy sector. In response, Prime Minister O'Neill highlighted the opportunity from the close cooperation with India as a market for LNG and for the development of downstream processing in petrochemicals. Mr. O'Neill was accompanied by key government ministers including Transport Minister William Duma, Mining Minister Baron Chen, and Trade, Commerce and Industry Minister Richard Maru at a high-level meeting with executives from the Indian government-owned oil and gas company or ONGC Group Limited, Petronet LNG Limited and GAIL India Limited. India's largest international oil and gas company, ONGC Videsh Limited, made its interests known, saying it was seeking collaboration with the sector in PNG. Mr. O'Neill said that India was an ideal partner, being the fourth biggest economy in the world. Mr. O'Neill said India is in great need for many of the resources that PNG has, particularly oil and gas and copper and gold. He said India is an enormous market with a consistently rising demand for energy. He said that with the Papua LNG project moving forward, there is a market that is waiting to import our gas. An earlier MOU was signed between Petromin PNG Holdings Limited with the ONGC Group and Petronet LNG Limited that provides an avenue to advance these negotiations. The Prime Minister said India has experience in the production of petrochemicals that offers the opportunity for cooperation. Mr. O'Neill invited a delegation from India's oil and gas sector to Papua New Guinea to seek out opportunities for investment. Away from the petroleum and energy sector and over to mining, Mining Minister Byron Chan said gold consumption in India was #1 in the world. He said India was an ideal market for PNG's gold because of its traditional significance in births, weddings and religious ceremonies.
There's a terrific consumption here for rare metals, especially gold here in India. India has a tradition of gold. Everything from birth to weddings to all the religious ceremonies, there is gold involved. So the gold consumption here in the world is #1. Indian investors are looking at establishing an industry maybe in our region just to feed the domestic consumption, which is world #1 right now. And they've come to PNG. I've met with some of these investors, and they're very excited to establish business relations, possible refineries, etc. in Papua New Guinea.
Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry Richard Maru said the highlight of the trip for him was meeting important investors. He said a delegation from PNG will travel to India for a PNG India Investment and Trade Roadshow in New Delhi, and the Indian private sector will be invited to come to PNG as soon as a PNG India Business Council is established.
With the meetings I've had with the Minister for SMEs in India and his team last night, they've already expressed interest to work with us. The challenge is for us to take the initiative by sending a team from the SME Corporation to India to explore and scope how we could work together. I think the most exciting opportunities for us is to look at SME college, especially for us to provide village-based skills training, so we can start many village-based industries in making jam and honey and herbs and using herbs, even using coconut products. Very simple skills that we can empower our village people to go back and start income generating opportunities in the villages. India has so much experience in that aspect, and I think this is a very exciting opportunity for us.
Minister for Transport William Duma said this was the most important overseas trip undertaken by the government, as India is an upcoming superpower of the world. He said the meeting is going to open up new opportunities for the PNG and Indian governments to interact more and do more business.
We all know that India is leading in the world in terms of IT technology, and Papua New Guinea can learn a lot. And in terms of the infrastructure sector, Indian companies have the expertise. They have built roads, railways, airports, and even ports in some of the most rugged terrain in their country. And I can see that there are more opportunities for Indian companies to continue their excellent traditions in our country when they do make the decision to invest in our country. You must remember that Port Moresby still is not linked to other cities and towns of our country, and that is where I see Indian companies can do a lot more. They can help us a lot in that regard.
Governor for West New Britain, Sasindran Mutuvel, said the visit also established PNG's regional leadership status at the summit.
The Indian Minister, Honorable Minister Goyal, the Minister for Renewable and New Energy, have also indicated the trade relations between Papua New Guinea and India is well over $240 million. Whereas the other Pacific countries put together, it's not even $50 million US dollars. So that shows, the kind of the partnership and the kind of, trade relations we have with India. And there are a lot of rooms to improve that trade relationships, and we have a lot of things to sell it to India. Now, Indian government is in desperate need for additional gases. I mean, India is one of the largest consumer market for oil and gas. So PNG could supply also gas. And there are so many other agricultural products which we can also supply to India. So I would say that this is quite a fruitful forum and meeting.
Indian High Commissioner to PNG Madhava Chandra was also pleased with the outcome of the meetings.
The most significant aspect of this visit has been that for the first time, Peter O'Neill has gone to India on an official visit at the invitation of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the bilateral meeting about which Honorable Prime Minister Peter O'Neill all along has been so clear and forthright should come through, has come through. And for over 30 minutes, the two Prime Ministers discussed a whole gamut of issues, and the talks have been most productive and fruitful. So all the major public, private sector undertakings here like the ISAR, the Shapoorji Pallonji, and other business groups who have shown a keen interest in the past few decades in PNG and who have already formed a functional arm in PNG. They have all presented their case to the Prime Minister, and I am sure more happier days are on for India-PNG relations. The third FIPIC summit is going to be held in Port Moresby, hopefully, and with it being hosted by PNG, I'm sure it will give a chance for the top Indian leadership to visit PNG.
PNG's High Commissioner to India, Tarsisius Eri, said he has been working on this visit for over 8 years. He said the PNG High Commission in New Delhi is on the ground to coordinate and facilitate any potential investors coming to PNG to ensure they travel to PNG to see for themselves the opportunities on the ground.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill met with the Prime Minister of India, Honorable Narendra Modi, and he was very forthcoming and asked the Prime Minister what India can offer to Papua New Guinea. And the responses have been very positive, and as the person on the ground, I'm going to run with it. I'm going to play a very big role, very pivotal role in making sure that some of these offers are taken up by the government of Papua New Guinea. The socio-economic projects which Papua New Guinea has will be very attractive for the Indian government to fund and assist with. The Prime Minister of India comes from very humble beginnings, and this type of projects are very close to his heart, and he wants to fund projects that will assist the average Papua New Guinean.
When in India, the Prime Minister, his delegation and heads of the other Pacific Island countries were taken for site visits. One of the first visits was to the Taj Mahal, one of the world's most celebrated structures as a symbol of India's rich history. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill and the PNG delegation were part of the large contingent that went on a tour of the Taj Mahal. It is India's #1 tourist destination, built close to 400 years ago. The Taj Mahal is a white marble tombstone located on the south bank of the Yamuna River in the Indian city of Agra. Its construction was commissioned in 1632 by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan to house the tomb of his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal. The Taj Mahal has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1983 and attracts some 3 million visitors a year. The other site visit was to the Ajmer Palace, located in Jaipur in the state of Rajasthan. Located on a hill, it is the principal tourism attraction in the Jaipur area. Prime Minister O'Neill said that while PNG and India are vastly different in population and landmass, both countries share common attributes that are important for developing a strong tourism industry. He said both countries have very rich and diverse cultures that are of great interest to foreign visitors. This includes different cultural practices, music, food, and dancing. The Prime Minister said a significant way through which India has expanded tourism is by engaging with small and medium enterprises. He said that as the tourism sector grows in PNG, SMEs are essential to our success, and PNG must develop the right ways for SMEs to engage in our tourism operations. This includes a large range of businesses from the provision of transportation, tour guides, art production, and operating retail stores. Prime Minister O'Neill said PNG has many features that already attract tourists from around the world, from the very large backpacker market through to family holidays and niche tourists such as people seeking adventure travel or fishing. PNG has a lot to offer. Mr. O'Neill said the aviation sector in India has also been open to greater competition, which also has lowered the cost of travel and increased the number of youth and family tourists and increased domestic travel. He said PNG has taken note of the experiences of India in bringing the world to its shores and developing a very strong tourism sector.
And that's all we have for you tonight. For more business news, or if you'd simply like to view this episode again, visit MTV online at www.mtv.com.pg. Or to join the conversation, like our page on Facebook for daily business news, or follow us on Twitter at BusinessPNG using the hashtag BusinessPNG. Until next week, enjoy the rest of your viewing on MTV. I'm Leanne Girari, and this was Business PNG.